Hi, welcome back to our series with creative videos, and we're going to talk about today another embroidery project. I am Pam Hayes from Hayes Sewing Machine Company of Wilmington, Delaware, and if you saw my video that I did last time, it was the tea towel with the over the edge applique, kind of 3D. We did foam, and it's kind of reversible, same back and front. It was done from this Kimberbell pattern, and today I'm going to be doing one of the other samples. This is the Placemat, and it has a little pocket you can put your cutlery in it, and our little watering can. Also 3D, has a little bit of ribbon to it. This one is also quilted. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, okay, and I did it with green thread. So it's going to be quilted in the hoop. Now, that's on the proviso that your machine will do a 8 by 12 embroidery field. That's what the embroidery is going to, for doing the quilting part. So I'm going to show you how to do that. That is a 2-part quilting, hooping. And then if you don't have that as capability, remember you could just have a placemat ready to go, and then you can just do the applique. And I'm going to be showing you how to do that. That is done with a 5 by 7 embroidery field. So again, you don't have to worry about, if you just wanted to do this part, not a problem. As always, I would recommend that when you're doing your design, print out or put on a tablet or device of some sort, so you have your step by step by step, this is how it's going to be done. It just makes life a whole lot simpler. Okay, so a couple things you need to be aware of. If you are doing the hooping with the quilting, you're going to need to have 3 stabilizers, okay? Stabilizer that I'm using today is done by the Sulky company. It is called Fabrisolvi Sticky. It has a paper, and then it has the Fabrisolvi on the other side, because we're going to need to get this wet at the end. That's how you're going to not have all of the stabilizer show on the back. It's going to be dissolved by you getting it wet. Again, 3 of these sheets that are going to fit into your hoop. 2 of them are going to be for the quilting part of it, and then 1 of them is for the actual design when we do the applique. You need to have your components for the actual applique. The fabric, this one's going to be for the little flower, for our leaf, for the spout on our watering can, and then the watering can itself. You also need to have this prepped, okay? So with this guy here, this is going to be, I cut mine a little bit bigger because I'm going to trim it down. So they say in the instructions, they're assuming you're using like a tea towel. I wasn't. So with this particular one here, I think I cut it like 14 by 17, and then we'll cut it down. Also, and yes, I am saying this correctly, you will need thumbtacks, push pins, okay? Actually, thumbtacks, not push pins. You need it to be nice and thin, okay? So when you're working with it, just be aware, yes, I did not say that incorrectly. All right, so at this point, you need to place in your hoop. Again, this is the 8 by 12 because I'm going to be doing the quilting. You put your stabilizer, the paper side is going to be up. So when you put it in, everything's all in, you're going to score it. I scored it with a pin, and then this piece peels off. You're going to do this each and every time you are doing work with the stabilizer to get it prepared. Okay? So at this point, we're going to go and we're going to choose our design. And it's a quilting design, and it's going to have 3 different parts to it. So 3 color changes. And the first color change, or the first color, it's going to do 3 marks, one about here, midway, and at the end. So I just am threaded up with my green thread, which I'm going to use throughout my entire project. However, if you want to do this with black or something different, that's fine. What's going to happen is when you go and you're going to hit start, you're going to see it's going to move it over, and it's just going to basically put a placement. And it's just a little right angle. And then it's going to move it along, and it's going to do the one for the middle, and then it's going to go and do the one at the bottom. Alright, so no problem. That was easy enough. In your instructions, it will have told you to basically prepare this as you would a quilt. You have your, in my case, my blue background, and I have batting in between, and the batting that I used is just a scrap of Warm and Natural that I had. So cotton batting. And I did a little bit of spray adhesive, and they want you to stitch around and just kind of hold it. At this point, you're going to take your thumbtacks. And yes, thumbtacks. You take your thumbtacks, and Pam's going to get her eyeballs on. And what you're going to do from the back side, in that corner, you're going to put a thumbtack. And you're going to get some tape, and you're just going to put some tape on it. And you only have to do it for the top and the bottom. The middle one, we're not going to worry about. So you can see where I'm going to do it right there. That right angle corner bit. Push it right on through. And then put some tape on. Okay. That was from the back side we did that. So take a look. I have the prong sticking up, and I have the prong sticking up on the other end. Ignore this middle bit. We're now going to take and we push this through. Alright, can you see how I'm pushing that through? And they want you to kind of be near okay, and flatten it out. Does that make sense to you? Alright. It's just to help you get it lined up. Now, if you take a look in the instructions, see that right angle that was stitched? That's where the tip is coming out. See how they want you to get it lined up? And then I didn't worry about the tape because for me it was sticky. I didn't have to worry about it. But see that yellow where it says remove the thumbtacks? That's important to do. I didn't do it for the first tubing, and I thought, oh, that's getting a bit close. And then I went back and I read it. You think it's highlighted in yellow, I would have noticed, but there you go. So, at this point, see how I'm pulling this off now? You don't need to throw it, there you go, like I just did. Alright, and we're pulling this off. And there we go. So they just use that to help you for placement. Now, we slide this in. And clamp it. And then lower the foot and hit start. It's going to do our quilting. It's going to take about 4 minutes or so to do the quilting. I have put my pretty thread, so my green embroidery thread that I'm using for quilting is in the top as well as in the bobbin. So I have done, it's pretty on both. Just like I was quilting with my embroidery machine, I would tend to have my pretty thread top and bottom. It's going to go, and you are going to have your quilt, and then what's going to happen is it's going to do markings on the other side. That's how we are going to know where to rehoop it. You'll see what I mean. So each time you use this particular one, it's going to give you the 3 markings on the left side. That's where you know where to put your project. It starts on the left of your placemat, and then it's going to do the quilting, and then it's going to go and do your placement. So we're going to do this, and I'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. Alright, so we had done our quilting, and then when it ended up at the end, let me just see if I can fold this so you can see it. It did 2 right angles again. So it did one here, and then it did one at the bottom. I took it out of my hoop, obviously, and I cut away all of the other, but you'll see this back here. Don't worry about that. When you wash your placemat, it's going to be gone. Remember, this is a water soluble. Okay. So, you'll notice though, we only have one side quilted, so we need to quilt the other side. So how do we do this? Just like we did just a second ago. I have my stabilizer prepared. Remember, I scored and pulled the paper away. We're using the same embroidery. I lower the foot, and remember how it's going to do those 3 placements on the left side, the top and the bottom, and that's the ones we're going to be using. Okay, so you're going to do that, and then what do we put on next? Our thumbtacks. We put our thumbtacks from the back, and we're going to tape them. So at that point, we're on our last little one at the bottom. All right, so once it's done, remember it's a 3-color design. Our first color puts the placements down. So we see them from the back. Okay, here, and that one. So we're going to go. Oh well, I don't know where I put my glasses. Don't worry about it. We'll fudge it. Look in the drawer. All right, we're going to put that in. That's my sister helping me out here. Thank you. Oh, there's a hoop in front of me. Wow, what a novel thought. All right, so we're going to take. All right, remember, we taped our thumbtack and thumbtack. At this point, remember those two markings, the one at the top and the bottom. That's where we're going to put our thumbtack. So thumbtacks are kind of important. Or I should say, yeah, thumbtacks, not push pins. Remember, push pins are too tall. Okay, so that first one is in. And who'd have ever thought? I thought, I'm doing an embroidery. I have to go to the office supply store first. That sentence doesn't normally come out of my mouth. All right. You have everything lined up. Okay. Now we're going to go. Thank you. And we're going to take the thumbtacks. I almost forgot. My sister's prompting me, take them out. Whoops. And I was a little bit too soon on that. So, we're just going to show you that again, just in case you didn't see it the first time. Okay, put that in. And so we're going to make sure that that is taped on there. All right. So for those that don't know where your rewind is, I was going to show it to you one more time anyway. There you go. That's number one. And number two. All right, and this time I'm going to make sure that's a little bit flatter. And take my thumbtacks out a little bit more ahead of time. All right. So now at this point, we're just going to slide everything in. Make sure I'm attaching it to my machine. And then what I want to do is, you notice how I'm turning the wheel down and I am right on the money where I should be. And at this point, lower the foot and hit start. And I'll be right back. I'm back. All right, so once you have done the quilting on the right hand side, it's going to want to do the placement again, okay? But remember, if you're just doing the two, you don't want to sew that third stitch color, okay? However, if you're doing a long table runner, this would be a perfect opportunity for you. You could do like 20 hoopings going to the side, and it would be absolutely fine. At this point, again, we want to trim the back. You want to take the time and trim up, get some of those placement things, unpicked. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. And then I trimmed my placemat. So it was the 13 by 16. I was just checking the numbers. Most important is just so they're roughly the same size. Okay? So we're going to have everything trimmed. You then want to take and you want to do a line going all the way across and from the bottom. So from the bottom up, it's 3.5, and then from the right hand side, it's 4 1/4. Remember, don't get all hung up on that. Just the measurements are going to be in the actual instructions. So at this point, we're done with the embroidery design that we've been doing for the quilting. So you want to load into the machine the little watering can. And again, remember, as long as your machine does 5 by 7, that will be absolutely fine. So then at this point, we're going to line it up, and we're going to make sure that we're lined up here. So we want to make sure that we're nice and straight, and we're just fine. At this point, you're going to also find that the watering can is rotated the proper direction. So basically, it's going to look like, excuse me just one second. So when you're actually working with this, this is how we want it to be, but remember, when it's in your machine, it's going to look like so. So when we line it up, the top of the watering can is automatically rotated for us, as long as you place the placemat how they suggest. So the first thing they're going to have you do is they're going to do the spout. So think about it. See how the spout kind of goes underneath the body? So they're going to do a straight stitch outline, and it's going to be for the spout, or the watering can spout. So I'm going to back up just one. I want to make sure that if I wanted to move something, let's just see if I'm lined up where I want to be. Alright, so we're going to go, and I'm going to go to layout, and I'm going to go to move. And that's telling me that's pretty good, but I'm going to move so it's right on those lines that I marked. Just in case anybody lined up my two placemats, I want to make sure that they're okay. So at this point, we're going to go, and we line it up, and we're just going to stitch. And yep, looks good. Just double checking. So at this point, we're going to hit start.
I'll find it when I'm ready.
And so it does the placement line, and then at that point, once it's done that stitching, I take my fabric and I line it up, lower it down, and I hit start one more time. And what I'm doing is I'm actually taking and putting the fabric down on top of my placemat. And it's going to do the straight stitch around it. And it sews that twice, so you're not going to get any kind of shifting or any fraying of any sort, which is kind of nice. And then at this point, it's going to stop. Then it's going to want us to trim around Okay, so we take a look. So it had done the first one. I put my fabric down, and then it has stitched around it twice. So then at this point, I'm going to trim it up. And remember, my favorite is applique scissors. So they're going to go, and they have a little bit of a curve to them. They make it a little easier. So I'm just going to go, and I'm going to stitch or trim right where I stitched. And get as close as you can. So we're going to stitch Trim right where we stitched. Alrighty. So, yay. Alright. So when we get that lined up, now, I'm not going to do, and it doesn't do next. You think, oh, well, it's going to stitch this bit. Not quite yet. So we're going to take our fabric that we're going to work with for the actual body of the watering can, and we want it to be nice and pressed. In real life, press it with an iron. You have a longer piece. They have you cut out a longer piece, and then you're going to fold it in half. Because remember, we need to have a nice edge for when we put our cutlery into the pocket. So at this point, again, it's going to look nice. It's going to give us a placement. Because remember, every time we do an applique, it's wonderful, and the fact that it's going to give us a placement. And we're going to go, and it's going to stitch around our rectangle, kind of. Maybe parallelogram? Maybe not. You guys can let me know what shape it is. Trapezoid. Thank you, Loretta. You can let me know what shape that is. So, at this point, we take our piece. It has done a longer basting stitch. If you can see that right there, okay, see it's a longer straight stitch right in that section. That's the top of the pocket. So that's where it wants us to put the top edge of our fold. Does that make sense? So it's going to be the top of the pocket. When we want to make sure everything else is covered, which it is, and then at that point, just hit start. Now remember, in the instructions, they also recommend that you tape this down. You can, absolutely, especially if you're kind of a newbie and you're new to this. I just never leave the room, but you notice how I'm gently petting it so it behaves itself. And we're going to stitch and it's going to come up to the side. Now remember, it is not going to finish the top bit, because remember, if at that point, if we did finish the top bit, that's called a patch and not a pocket. So at this point, see how it finishes up at the top? And again, I'm going to take and I'm going to trim this up. So in this time you are trimming through 2 layers. And by all means, you can also take this off your machine. I'm just being lazy. Depends on how much room you have on your machine. I'm doing obviously a way bigger hoop than the 5x7. I just kept the same hoop on there, so I have a little bit more room. Now, you'll notice when you look at your design, you have just a little straight stitch. And the little straight stitch is for placement for our ribbon. And we're just going to take this one more time. My needle came unthreaded, so we're just going to rethread that. And we're going to line this up. Now, you take your ribbon. They wanted you to do 3-inch ribbon, 3-inch, okay? Fold it in half. And we're going to put some tape on the end. Then we want to have that line that was drawn. They want you to do basically about a 1/2 inch beyond. So the two ends of your ribbon are going to be about an inch, 1/2 inch rather, beyond that bit. And then we are good to go. And then what I will do here is, they want you to leave about an 1/8 of an inch. There you go. Now, if we take a look at our little diagram on my machine, now it wants me to take whatever thread color I'm going to do for going around the spout. It wants us to do that next. And I choose orange. And it's going to take about 3 minutes to do that. And I'll be right back. Hi! The straight stitch, or the satin stitch I should say, around the spout is done. Now the next thing they want you to do is whatever color you want to go around the actual watering can itself, put that on your machine and hit start. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back. Just wanted to let you know I've picked green for going around the actual watering can itself, and I'm an overachiever. I did the orange for the handle. Now this is where it's really important to make sure you put tape on the ribbon. So remember how it had that loop? We made the loop for the ribbon. You want to make sure you have tape on there so it's not going to get caught on the foot. The next thing we're going to do is do our final applique of the flower. So again, it's on the screen. Remember, it's going to do a placement. And it's going to stitch around. And I'm going to outline mine in yellow. Okay, now this is where I want you to be careful. You want to make sure that so it's not going to get caught on the ribbon. So quite often I will stop the machine, you know, I'll have my hand on the stop button. If I don't like how the foot and the ribbon are going to react, hit stop. You can always lift the foot and readjust something, all right? So now at this point, we have our placement. We're going to take our fabric, and I'm going to plop that down, lower the foot, and hit start. And it's going to stitch all the way around. I choose kind of a multicolor, so I don't worry about getting it lined up exactly the same for the other flower. Remember, stitches around it twice. And then we're going to go and we're going to trim. Once we trim, all you have to do at that point is really bind your placemat in however you like to bind it. If you like to do it by hand, go for it. Okay, that's not traditionally how I do it. When I stitched and did mine, I did a zigzag for my binding. And the width for my zigzag was 2.5 by 2.5. If you like a feather stitch, if you wanted to do something like that, awesome. They'll basically give you the dimensions of your strips. You want to cut them 2 1/4 by the width of the fabric, and you'll need 2 strips, believe it or not, to go around your placemat. Okay? So you want to bind it off as a whatever technique you want to do. They'll give you instructions in the PDF that comes with the CD. So we're going to leave you with this. Again, I'm going to trim this, and then we're going to have the final stitch around. So choose whatever color you want to work with. Again, for my case, I decided to do the orange. I thought it'd be nice and cheery. Next time, Loretta's going to be doing a quilt, and we'll see you then.